Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 186 with Travis Ference. This was Travis's second episode on the podcast, and we had a great chat. We talked about so many things, including fatherhood and time management, Soundflow, scripts, and other shortcuts. Is AI coming for mixing engineers? We talk about content creation and the surplus of noise on the internet, Travis's approach to stem processing and his stereo bus, raising your rates, ROIs on a mix. Is technology really helping us? Travis talks about investing in your health, how Sidequests don't help your mix, and the importance of selling yourself authentically, and everything in between. We really chatted about a lot of things here. This was a great chat. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So here's my chat with Travis Ference coming up right here on Secret Sonics. Hey everyone, if you're a music studio professional who wants to build deeper relationships with better clients, former guest of the show, Carl Bonner, has created some free educational resources for you. The link is in the show notes below, so go check it out. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Travis Ference. Travis is a Grammy-nominated mixing engineer and the host of Progressions, a podcast about finding success in the music industry. This is Travis's second appearance on the show, so I'm thrilled to have him back on. So with all that to say, welcome back to Secret Sonics, Travis.
What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm doing good, man, especially now I'm getting to chat with you again. How's about you?
I'm great, man. I was just crazy busy last week. I had this taste of pre-baby life, and it was exhausting, and I both missed it and didn't miss it.
Wait, what happened? You were traveling?
No, I was just said yes to way more work than, it was a bunch of deadlines, and I was like, well, I can either not do this gig or find a way to make it happen. So I just crammed a bunch of stuff in last week. It was
excellent. Fun. So yeah, amazing. So I guess that segues perfectly to kind of the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is in the interim, since we last chatted on my podcast, at least, I think on both of our podcasts, actually, we've both had kids.
Yeah.
You had your first kid and I had my second kid.
Yeah.
It's been a whirlwind. So yeah, I guess it's also the day after Father's Day. So let's talk dadhood. How has becoming a parent, becoming a dad changed, I don't know, your workflow, life, how you're doing your work, how you're managing everything?
Man, every single aspect just flipped everything on its head. I mean, I don't know if I've talked about this on other shows or if we had talked about it on your show, but fatherhood or parenthood, I guess I should say, it just changes every single priority in your life. Making the greatest record in the world as your legacy is no longer your legacy anymore. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
I now have to raise this child to be a great human being who's set up for success. And I still love to mix records, obviously, and, put my heart and soul into it, but it doesn't have the gravitas that it had before. And also when you're keeping a little person alive, nothing else seems difficult. People are can you do this? I'm like, fuck yeah, I can do that. I got a kid. I can do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Yes. So it's awesome, man. I've been loving it. And, I've learned a lot about balance.
Do you feel like you have it down pat or you're still learning?
No, not at all.
No,
but I mean, somehow, I know we've talked about this off the air. My wife and I, we both work for ourselves. We're fortunate in that way. And so we just decided to work less. So I'm doing the podcast and my mixing in 3 days a week. And she's, doing what she does the other 3 days a week. And then we, have Sunday to ourselves. So I've really had to learn how to do the same caliber and quality of work in less time, or also to control expectations with clients and just be hey, look, I can't do that this week. I can do it next week, but I can't do it this week. And I've found that clients are understanding. I don't tell them that I'm only working 3 days a week. I just say I can't do it this week. I can do it next week.
Yeah. Gives you the allure of being busy.
The allure. They're like, oh man, he's so busy. I'm I'm just 50% as busy, But
yeah,
you learn a lot about yourself really fast. I think anybody that is about to have a kid, you're about to go on quite an adventure. It's going to be amazing, but you're going to change all your priorities very quickly. So I think, that's what I've taken away.
Yeah, the shrinking of time is the biggest thing because you really don't have the luxury anymore to finesse things ad nauseum, right? You just kind of have to get in and do it.
Yeah.
And in a sense, that kind of helps you pump things out better, I think, right?
I agree.
Like we were talking also, like just doing the podcasts. I think I don't know if this video was when this video is coming out, but we did another conversation for something for you, but the act of pumping out podcasts makes you a little bit less of a perfectionist, and kind of completing things helps you complete things faster with less hindsight, regret or fear of regret or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to throw perfectionism out the door. I mean, I think everybody should throw perfectionism out the door, but like when you have a kid and you're like, okay, she's going to sleep for an hour. Can I finish this mix in an hour? I've already put 2 hours into it. And you just sit down and you're like, yeah, it's done.
Yeah. Because you focus on the important things.
Yeah. It's like you don't get bogged down in that minutia that only you did because you're the one sitting in front of the speakers, and you start focusing on like way more what is going to be noticeable to the client and the audience, And I think that's super helpful because you kind of get to the root of like, what's the point of what I'm doing here? It's not to like entertain myself with a new plugin or like sweep around EQs for fun. It's to make a great mix that everybody's going to like. And it doesn't always necessarily include sweeping your EQ around for 3 hours looking for some whistle tone that nobody's going to hear except for you. So I enjoy this like kind of freedom of having to work faster. It's kind of freeing.
Yeah, it's like simultaneously freeing, and it makes things better, but it also is stressful because it's like I don't have more time.
Yes, yeah. It's always stressful when somebody's like, "This is amazing. I love this. I forgot to send you these other vocals," and you're like, "Oh no, we're not done. I thought we were done." You've thrown a wrench in my 3 hour scheduling, but yeah, no, it's cool. I'm enjoying life the way that it is now.
Epic. So that's good. No regrets.
No regrets.
Amazing. So in terms of like, since we last spoke, in terms of like your workflow, I guess the time management thing is part of it. What else has kind of changed in terms of, I don't know, your approach to mixing? I think last time we were talking about maybe like not ScreenFlow. What is it?
Soundflow.
That's
and a Stream Deck.
ScreenFlow is how I record videos.
I'm still using Soundflow.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I love Soundflow. I was actually just on Father's Day. Scotty was on a nap, and I was out here like making some new commands. It's when you don't have a lot of time, like you and I understand because we have kids. It's like it can be hard to like carve out that like 45-minute space to write a script or something that's going to save you time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I spent 30 minutes
doing the little thing that saves you a lot of time down the road.
Exactly.
But like, you don't actually have time for it right now.
Yeah, the compounding gains of that 30 minutes. But yeah, I spent 30 minutes out here yesterday just building some RX, one button RX moves that I'm doing all the time. And, it cost me 30 minutes on Father's Day of sitting here with a beer, playing with Soundflow and Pro Tools, but it's going to save me hours in a year or so. Those things are really important. I haven't got to put as many of them into my workflow as I want, but every time I do it, I just have this like weight. I'm just like, nice. Okay, I just made progress, or I feel like I made progress. But yeah, I encourage everybody using Pro Tools to get on Soundflow and check that out. I mean, I'm staring at it right now. I do things where it builds my folder structures for me. Like I'm just tired of making the same folders. So, I have Finder commands set up. If I'm doing a podcast, let's say I'm going to do a podcast, I press new podcast button and it asks me the guest's name. I punch in the guest's name, and then it builds the folder structure for the Pro Tools session, the RX files, like the stuff I share with my editor, the Premiere video folder, the templates in there, then makes the drop boxes, and then it takes, a millisecond, and I don't have to type underscore or 01 underscore raw 02 underscore RX so that like everything like lines up the way that I like. So yeah, there's so many things you can do to save time. I haven't done them all, but I got them all up here.
One day at a time. They're up in the noggin.
Yeah.
Up in the noggin.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I literally just hired somebody, named Enoch, who was on the show a while back, and he's helping me like kind of systematize some parts of my business, because I think maybe you guys have better brains for this than me, but the like zapping Dropbox to create a new folder instantaneously, and sending like a link to an editor, these kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy what you can do.
I battle with this. This is probably a fault of mine, and maybe you'll agree or disagree with me. But, I was paying somebody to build a script for me that would like make a folder in Dropbox, create an MP3, and then like load it into an email with the client's name, like stuff like that. Or like, I've been using Andrew Shep's Bounce Factory, which I absolutely love and like saves me so much time.
Oh, yeah.
But there's this part of me that's like, I'm paying this money and I'm not able to change this script because I don't understand what I did. Or I'm paying for Bounce Factory and it's doing way more than I need it to do. Can I build a dumbed down version of it? And so that's why I haven't automated as many things as I'd want to, because I want to understand how to do them. It's like if you have somebody build your website and you want to add a picture to it, then you have to call somebody. If it's all like in HTML and you have no clue what's going on, if you use something like Squarespace and you made it yourself, making an update's like super easy. It's like a catch-22 for me. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but
like maybe your time is better spent mixing and just paying the money for the automation.
Maybe, but I refuse to not know how to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
you have to understand. You have the classic engineer brain of I must understand how this all works.
Yes, yeah. It's like, am I saving money if I have to pay the guy every time to like change his script for me? But
right. I think you're leaning heavier in that direction than I am, but I respect you for it.
I should just pay somebody to do it. But
nice. Well, maybe you could teach me one day.
Well, you're at the disadvantage because Soundflow's not like, it's not tied into Logic the same way it's tied into Pro Tools. They just released an RX thing for it, but you can get it to do everything. You just have to work a little harder. I think so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you would have to do more scripting and more like mouse navigating. And there's somebody listening to this that uses Soundflow with Logic that's totally pissed at me right now for something I said that's incorrect. But
sounds like a decent thing to Google or ChatGPT or something and see what comes up. It's probably not on ChatGPT, right? That was like a couple years ago that they sourced all their information from or something.
Yeah, I don't know when it cuts off, like 2020 now or 2021 or 2 or something. I don't know.
But somebody on the air is listening to this and getting pissed off.
Two audio guys talking about ChatGPT. We don't know what we're talking about.
ChatGPT. Well, we said we talk about AI, so maybe maybe we could talk about that now.
Well, I mean, I don't really have an opinion. I just think that there should be more people talking about, AI and audio, right? So I took the podcast over to YouTube. You and I have talked about this, and I'm finding that there's a lot of AI tools for video editors. Like I have this one that breaks up the camera angles for me. So it takes me like, what used to take me like 4 hours takes 5 minutes. And I wouldn't really call it AI. It's like more like an advanced script. And I think a lot of people are like calling things AI. I'm pretty sure Waves has started saying AI, but it's all just algorithms and bullshit. Nobody likes Waves anymore. It sucks for them. But
yeah,
I just don't.
Some of their plugins are pretty good.
Yeah.
We all use some of their plugins.
We all have them. They crossed the line and
wait, they had that moment a couple months ago.
Yeah, they made a mistake. But hopefully they're not sponsoring this episode.
Which they redacted. Though they're not sponsors. I have friends who work there, but
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like so many people are afraid AI is going to take jobs, and it's definitely going to take jobs away. I feel like you have to embrace the fact that it's coming. Like I've been using ChatGPT for podcast and YouTube stuff, and I don't think I'm very good at it, but I know there's people out there that are really, improving on scripts and getting better title ideas, and they're using a combo of AI and like their team. And I just don't see the audio community getting involved in that or talking about it. I mean, there was like something that popped up. I don't know what it was. It was like ChatGPT meets a DAW. And so you go into this little chat window. I messed with it. I can look it up later and tell you what it is. But you could type like, give me a drum beat like Phoenix or something like that. And it'll give you a 4-bar drum loop that doesn't sound like Phoenix at all. Or like, give me a Juno pad, and you get like 4 or 5 credits for it to like create. And it's garbage, but it's interesting. And maybe that's why nobody in audio talks about it, is because every time like something comes up where there's an opportunity to explore it, you're like, this is garbage. But I don't know. What do you think? You think it's going to take our jobs?
Well, I'm not so worried about it taking our jobs, at least not yet. I'm more worried about like the world it's creating. Cause like, I don't know, I keep seeing like these ads on Facebook of like, see what Zapier and ChatGPT can do for you. And then you kind of realize like, if people are just doing Zapier or ChatGPT on like the internet. It's just like everything on the internet is officially fake.
Oh, wow.
And like nothing matters anymore. Or like nothing on the internet matters anymore.
People are connecting Zapier to ChatGPT to like answer a question for somebody or something. Did you look into these ads?
I don't know. I didn't go deep. I didn't go too deep. I should have gone deeper. But I just think like so much of what we're going to be looking at on the internet is going to be just totally bot made and not be made by humans. And like the era of like the internet being an interesting place where people connect and make things or whatever is going to just kind of like be way, way worse and even more cluttered with garbage. It's already so cluttered with garbage.
So cluttered.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's brutal. It's brutal. I think
so. Like that's kind of my like. I'm not worried. I think jobs will be taken. I don't know how long it'll be till mixing engineers' jobs are taken. I think people's like a lot of regular people's jobs are going to be taken. Not yet. Maybe in like 3 to 5 years from now.
I agree.
I think when things kind of, and then I think we have longer, maybe 10 years, 20 years.
Well, but okay,
you know?
What about like, and I don't really think this is an AI tool, which I mentioned to you earlier. Like, what about like Ozone Master Assist? Like, there's got to be a mix. Somebody's got to be making a mixing version of that. So then, if you're just like attaching frequency profiles to things and like identifying main elements, and then using another EQ to demask or whatever, somebody's taking notes right now and going to build this. But I mean, I think it's possible that you could make a lot of mixes that sound, I don't know, you still have to get the balance. I don't know. I mean, I definitely think it's possible to like analyze these things and spit something out, but I don't think it's not going to replace us. But I think it's definitely going to like...
Maybe they'll use AI to kind of recreate the mix for Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, we can't rant on Dolby. I can't go down that path again. I definitely think that people need to just pay attention to what's going on. Because talk about like saving time and having a kid. Like if there's an AI tool that's going to save me time in a mix, I'm down to pay for that. If it's going to help me continue to do a great job faster, I think that's where people are going to win and lose in AI. People are going to embrace the fact that it's a tool that you can use, and they're going to succeed using that tool, or they're going to think it's going to take their job and they're not going to want to touch it, and then they're actually going to get replaced by a human who is utilizing a tool. You know what I mean?
Right. It's kind of like, are you going to use Melodyne or you're not going to use Melodyne? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's what clients are asking for now, so you kind of have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Unless you're specifically not doing that kind of music, which is also a legit thing and cool.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I spoke with this guy, Philip Weinrub, and I was like, he's like making records totally how I've not been making records, but like in a way that I kind of envy. And I was like, that is kind of dope.
Yeah.
You know, just recording people in a room with, not listening back to takes, not tuning stuff. Like there's something that has more soul in that, that I kind of miss. You know? But for most people, they need a little Melodyne, right? That's So maybe it's just the next frontier of that, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit of a subject change, but I think it's going to force people to double down in like what's real though as well. Because like you said, you had that ad and you were like talking about how the internet's going to be entirely fake. I think people are going to they're going to be drawn to people that they know are like real people doing real work. I don't know if that means like you're going to have to cut to 24 track, or it means you're just going to have to like be really honest on the internet. Maybe you have a podcast. I don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like people are going to have to put their like real authentic self out there even more to counteract the fact that so many people can use ChatGPT to improve an idea, I guess.
Right.
It's all, hypotheticals.
But then they'll fake that also, right?
And then eventually we'll fake that with deep fakes, and then we can definitely live in the woods. And
like, I just don't know how we're going to know what's true anymore at a certain point, and then it's like, how do we know? Like you were talking about like Descript, like what's the word? Not harmonizing,
recreating,
recreating a person's voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a point where it's almost indistinguishable.
Did you see that clip that I mentioned?
No, I didn't.
So there's these guys that have a podcast, Holland and Samir. It's like a big like creator show, because ever since I went to YouTube, I've gotten into all these like YouTube and like creator podcasts and YouTube channels. But they let Descript match recreate their voices using all of they're hundreds of hours of speech, right? So there's an amazing palette to work with. And so I was listening to an episode. I was driving in the car. I should say that I was like on the freeway, and they just played a game in whatever episode of the podcast I was listening to. And they were like, all right, we're going to play. One person played an AI voice of themselves, and the other person had to try to pick what sentence in that was the AI generated sentence.
Oh
and
my
neither
gosh.
one of them could pick. And like as I'm listening and I'm driving, I'm like trying to pay attention. I'm like, oh, I think it was that last sentence that sounded kind of a little grainy, or it sounded weird. And then they'd be like the first sentence, and you're like, oh shit, really? That's crazy. I haven't listened to it like on headphones.
It's like you think you can A/B like converters, and then you can't.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah, but yeah, man, the technology's getting creepy, man. It's getting weird.
It is getting creepy.
Okay. So before we leave AI, I have to confess that I did a podcast intro with ChatGPT. It wrote it.
And how'd it go?
I mean, nobody called me out for it. I mean, I modified it, but I can't remember which
one was this? When was this? I'm not up to date. I haven't heard the last two.
It was about frequency bias.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know if you. Okay, I think it was like 2 episodes ago. I think
I saw that one on YouTube. Like you did, like just like the clip of the intro on YouTube. Right?
Yes. Yeah. In my experimenting with various forms of content. Anyway, so I put in like a couple ideas into ChatGPT and then told it to write me an outline about how frequency bias affects people's music careers. And then I like asked it to modify a couple things. And then I said, write me, like a 3 to 5 minute script. And then it spit out a script. And then I basically almost read it word for word until the we'll call it the third section. And that one I basically kind of rewrote the entire thing so that it was like more in my voice, but it was along the line of what it had written. And I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was. It felt like what I wanted to say. I was kind of, when you're like, I need a topic to discuss. I'm kind of interested in this. I wonder what's going to happen if I punch this into ChatGPT. I don't think I'm not going to do it very often, but I was just kind of,
and it saved you time.
I think it saved me time. It you know what it did was it sparked the inspiration to kind of actually sort the idea out, because I knew I wanted to talk about the idea of frequency bias, but I didn't know like in what manner I wanted to do that. And so it kind of guided me, but it guided me so well that like probably half of it's unmodified, which is bizarre to me.
I guess, they know how people talk, right?
Yeah, it was weird. Anyway, we can end the AI nonsense for.
No. I mean, I think that's a good segue to talk about kind of content creation in general, which I want to talk about with you. And I guess this will be my moment to kind of talk about it on the podcast. So I was doing these kind of mixed notes episodes kind of in between, because the nature of my family life, I had to stop doing weekly. I had to go to bi-monthly.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't want to like lose downloads, and I want to like make sure people are still interested, and maybe this is a good chance to talk about things that I want to talk about, and kind of put a little bit more of myself into the podcast. So I started doing these mixed notes episodes. I think some of them are good.
Yeah, I like them.
Thank you. Maybe I'll keep going. But I don't know if it was, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. I was just like, I don't have anything I feel like talking about. I don't want to do this. Like, what am I trying to say? And like, I just kind of like had a moment of like, there's just so much noise on the internet. And if I make something, it's because I'm just trying to make more noise, not because I actually have something to contribute right now. Yeah. And I'm tired and I don't sleep enough and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, my podcast gives me so much joy because I get to talk with people, and like I really think we're providing value, and like I'm providing something really good into the internet space.
Yeah,
that
I agree.
Is not wasting people's time.
Yeah,
and is like valuable. And then like with the mixed notes thing, I think some of them are cool, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just creating more noise, and I just kind of like felt self-defeated, and I just gave up, and I said, I'm not doing it this week. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like that's kind of like, I'm just like, I don't know. There's just so much noise, and there's so much fakeness.
Oh my God.
I just don't know how to deal with it anymore. I just like, even if like my podcast is only bi-monthly, like maybe that's the best thing I can do. You know what I mean? I don't know. Thoughts?
Man, I have so many. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, so I've gone down this YouTube rabbit hole, right? And what my podcast is to me, I'm now trying to like translate that into YouTube, where it's all about like clicks and searchability. And you have very like free flowing conversations with your guests the same way that I do. And we both have like a core value to our show. Like you're focused on, more of the technical side. I'm focused on a little bit more of the like mindsets and like overall like career growth. And so like you think that you can trigger a clickable like title from these things, but it's so difficult to compete when it's like, we're doing what we feel like is like authentic and fun right now. But then if you were to try to make a 5-minute YouTube clip out of this, it would be challenging. I think it's challenging to get that clickbait title. Obviously this podcast would do it. Look at like, Modern Wisdom, or like Joe Rogan obviously came up on YouTube. He was he invented the clips, right? So like it's possible, but it's hard. And you look at all these people, you look at all the oversaturated shit on the internet, and it's oversaturated because it's the clickable shit. Like 10 Logic tips you've never heard, 5 Pro Tools tips you've never heard. Like people are going to click on that. So more and more people make that garbage, not to mention the people making it don't even know what they're doing. They've never made a record. Yeah. They just have 10 Logic tips.
Is this part of frequency bias, by the way? Like,
it's not part of frequency bias. No.
Oh no.
I really want to put things out in like an authentic manner. Like I want the podcast, and I also do like some more engineering focused videos on my like personal Instagram. And I want to put things out there that I think are like more authentic to what I want to talk about. And then it's frustrating when you hit that wall of like, well, this is what I want to talk about, but no one gives a shit, and no one's going to click on this because it's not got the flashy thumbnail. And so it's like finding that balance of how you can make your authentic idea like clickable, I think is like an art form. So I give it to people that have done it. And it makes me feel for like artists and musicians, right? Where like you make a record that you are so passionate about, and you put it out into all this noise, and then there's no feedback. Not because it's not good, just because nobody found it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think I have the greatest podcast in the world, but I don't think that my podcast is garbage. But I put a podcast out on YouTube, and it's like nobody listens to the podcast. It's not like the audio version. Yeah. So I feel for people that are like making things and putting it out, and you're just like screaming into the void, even though you really believe it's good. You just have to keep believing that it's good. And as long as it's fun, you have to keep doing it. But I don't know if this is where you want to take this question, but it's
no, it's good.
Making content, I just feel like is become necessary. Like people have to get to know you before they want to collaborate with you or hire you. And the only way you can do that is to make some form of content. You know, whatever. Maybe that's going to be mix tips.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be, cooking videos. Fuck if I know. I don't know. So
yeah, but it's so frustrating because it's like the amount of time I'm like thinking about making content. It's like, this is all time that could have gone into music creation or mixing or, I don't know, something else. But like, I feel like I need to do this. So I'm doing this. And like,
yes,
maybe I don't know. I think there is a balance there. I think there is a balance that, you are putting out enough things that people could kind of see that you're doing like people could somehow find you, or like if they found you, maybe they'll check out the stuff you've put out and, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like maybe not to the point where it's like overwhelming and like instead of being a mixing engineer, now I'm a content creator. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like that. There's a fine line there, man.
Yeah, it is a fine line.
And it's like it's a frustrating fine line, right? And it's like it shouldn't have to be so.
Yeah.
Ideally, we wouldn't be crossing too deep into it, but we are. We have to.
Yeah, you kind of have to. And it makes me think about like when I was doing, lots of pop vocal sessions and pop songwriting sessions, right? Anybody that wants to know more about my story can listen to the other episode. But so I used to do all these sessions, and then like at the end of the session, people are like, give me the files so-and-so can mix it. And then they'll be like, do you mix? And I'm like, I've been mixing all day. Like we've been recording this all day. I've been mixing. What we're listening to is a mix. It's not like faders at 0 with like nothing going on. But that people see you as I was the recording engineer, and I was never going to be the mixer to those clients until I stopped doing engineering sessions. You know what I mean? And I feel like that fine line that you're talking about, when you're somebody like us who, we make our living in the music industry, engineering and mixing, and then we have our podcast, there's people that reach out to me, I think because I'm a podcaster. They don't even know that I have credits and that I actually pay my bills making records, and it can be and then you see like people on YouTube that have a huge YouTube, and you're like, oh, no way that guy makes records. But then you're like, well, now I'm just pigeonholing that person the same way I don't want to be pigeonholed. Like, just because that guy has a massive tips channel, and by the way, is probably making millions of dollars making these fucking YouTube videos while you're not making millions of dollars making records, you're just angry at this person, really. Right. But like, that person also probably still mixes records, whether you like it or not, they're also in the music industry. And so I think people are really quick to like throw you on either side of the line when you start doing these videos. And I think it's why a lot of people don't want to do it. And I kind of enjoy it, but I don't want someone to be like, oh yeah, Travis used to make records and now he makes videos. That's not what I want at all. And you probably feel the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I go through seasons, or I don't know about seasons, but I go through like periods of time where it's like, why am I making so much content right now? I should be like, where's like the music stuff? You know what I mean? Like, and then there's times where it's just kind of, I should be making more content, but I'm too busy. I don't know. It kind of fluctuates.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I definitely, like I said, I really enjoy it. Like the days that, I put the light up and I've scripted like 3 or 4, videos, whether they're for like progressions or for Travis. And, I just shoot all day and edit some video. I really enjoy it. I don't want to get paid.
That's awesome.
I don't want to get paid to edit your video. I don't want to be a video editor, but like, it's become a creative outlet for me to kind of learn these new skills. And I'm definitely going to keep doing it when I have time. But yeah, I also, mixed like 4 songs and tuned a bunch of vocals last week and engineered a session, and that was awesome too,
Yeah. It sounds like you enjoy making content more than I do, which is good.
I do.
Kudos to you.
I enjoy the challenge that I mentioned, where it's like, I want to make something that I personally like,
right?
That I didn't make for clickbait purposes. And I also want it to get as many clicks and views as possible. Like, can I crack that code? I think that's the thing is like the competitive aspect of me, where it's like, I will not just make a review video for a microphone because I know I'm going to get more clicks. I want to make the video I want to make, and I want it to get as many clicks as possible. And maybe that's going to be my downfall, and why I'll eventually stop making videos. But
yeah,
I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I feel like I've kind of gotten good with that with my Instagram reels, because I'll kind of make the Instagram reel I would make anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of like, when I listen back to the episode edit, I'll kind of say like, oh, that was a cool moment where they got passionate about something, or like, this is great. And it's also it's like one of the things I like to talk about or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of have like a, spidey sense for what would be a good reel. And then we'll make the reel, and my buddy Benjamin helps me out. And then I'll kind of think, what would be like a good little tagline for this reel? Yeah. And it's usually kind of, I've gotten better at it. I don't know if I'm the best, but you
got to bring ChatGPT into the mix.
I probably could, but the thing I've been using ChatGPT for is to write me like little bits of like code to like do shortcuts on my Mac computer, like stuff like that.
Nice.
That's kind of what I've used it for.
And it works.
Sort of. It worked at first, then it stopped working. It was working everywhere except in Logic, and then I deleted it, and now I'm doing something different, but it's not great. Whatever. Anyways, you're better at this stuff than I am. Well, we'll talk off air. Hey everyone, if you've made it this far into the episode, then you're probably a fan of podcasts that help your personal development in the music industry. Former guest of the show and fellow podcaster Travis Ference hosts Progressions, a show about finding success in the music business. If you dig Secret Sonics, I have a feeling that you might enjoy his angle too. You can go check it out via the link in the show notes below, so go check it out. All right, back to the episode. Let's talk more about music. Let's jump back into the music. Okay, so we were talking about your mix workflow and how that's changed since our last conversation. Talk to me about stereo bus processing. Are you still doing stereo bus processing?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
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 You're not worried about your stems and Atmos. Like, tell me about your stereo bus.
So this whole Atmos stem thing, so here's my system that, I think I've mentioned somewhere, is that I deliver instrument group stems to after mix is approved, right? So you've got drums, you've got bass, you've got all guitars, you've got all keyboards, you've got pianos, and, it's like 10 or 12 things.
Yeah.
And if I print those through my mix bus, I do not sidechain compressors with like a version of the mix. I also don't do like heavy saturation on the mix bus either. My stems that I just print, if I put them back in a session, which I always do with the mix, unlimited mix with the 10 or 12 stems, flip the phase on the unlimited mix, it is basically canceled out. I know everybody's like, you have to sidechain your mix compressor. And I agree with that. Like if you want it to be absolutely 100% perfect, but I'm getting basically 99% perfect without, that extra sidechain. So I feel like if you're doing extremely aggressive processing, then maybe that's
Right.
necessary, but I'm pulling a few dB on maybe one or two compressors. Sometimes there's a saturation of some sort. If you throw an ATR on there, those stems aren't going to cancel out, unless you turn that wobble on, the crosstalk and the wobble off and stuff. But yeah, so my mix bus, I actually just kind of went through and like toned everything out. I'm trying to kind of find a way to have everything land the way I like it as quick as possible. I drew a little bit of inspiration from the Michael Brower Pure Mix video. Did you watch that?
Which one? Because I think I watched one of them.
I guess it's like a year old at this point, but he broke down his whole in the box template and how they do it all. But they calibrate his buses. He's got his A, B, C, D, right? So they calibrate them for, 1 dB of compression. And if there's an EQ, they calibrate that with like 10K or 100 hertz or whatever. It's all toned and calibrated so that I'm not going to talk about why he does that, because he has his whole system and I'm not trying to emulate it at all. But what I took away from watching that video, which I thought was fascinating, even though I don't want to do what he does, is if I could find a way to know that if a producer sends me stems that at unity reflect the rough mix, if I can drop those into my mix template and immediately have the color and the feel and the vibe that I like and still maintain his balance or her balance, then that means that I get to go straight to creative mixing. You know what I mean? But if my bus compressor on the bass isn't calibrated to some level, then I put his bass track in and that compressor might be slamming like 10 dB, thus ruining that tone and balance. So I've been going through, I'm still working on it in my spare time.
Interesting.
Going through and like toning things out to like minus 18 dBFS, and having 1 dB of compression. And then when files come in, kind of trying to get those down to minus 18, which, basically 0 VU, right? And so I've done that to my mix bus. And I think that helps as well, like with the UAD stuff. A lot of that UAD, a lot of these analog emulations are like ideal at like minus 18, minus 16 dBFS. And so if you push into those things way harder, you're getting distortion.
Too much.
Saturation or distortion that maybe is great, but it's not reflective of that, that emulation, because you're hitting it harder than, most people would have hit those boxes. Yeah, so that's kind of my new thing, is I've really been trying to find a way to gain stage everything so that like I know my compressors are like working where I like them when I put in a certain level. And it's when you have a deep mix template, it can be kind of confusing. I'm just going like instrument group by instrument group and just trying to find what works. So it's, I guess I'm kind of bored and I'm just fucking around.
What do you mean?
I mean, like I could just keep using my template the way that I do it. I feel like I want to have a change. I want to mix my life up a little bit.
Wait, sorry, but are you matching those the buses to the rough mix bus like groups, so to speak? You're like matching your drum bus to the rough drum bus?
So let's say ideal file delivery, I would love, post fader, post effects for everything except for vocals. And if you have live drums, I might want those dry as well, depending on what kind of music we're talking about. And so ideally I could just take all those stems, and if they're too hot, just gain them all down until my mix bus meter is tapping around -18, and that would technically be correct. But obviously, if somebody doesn't send you something post fader, then you kind of have to rebuild the rough mix balance anyway. So at that point, I'm just kind of going through bass and, hey, I'm going to match bass to -18, kind of do my gain staging really quick, and then match the rough mix. And it's more likely, most people, despite what you ask for, most people don't send post fader stems.
They don't.
Yeah. Even if you're like, I want this post fader, they're like, okay, cool. And they just export the stems, and you're like, thank you for the post fader stem.
You don't get Pro Tools sessions?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
Are you happy about that or not happy about that?
I just think it's the people I work with. I think that they're not Pro Tools users, or they're not working with a Pro Tools engineer. It's like if you think about like, a hit producer probably has an on-staff engineer, and they're probably running everything in Pro Tools, and then they're sending that Pro Tools session to Manny or whatever.
Yeah.
Most producers don't have an engineer on staff, and they're probably not sending it to Manny, and they're probably working in Ableton or Logic. And if they go do a vocal somewhere, they're getting stems from the engineer or just the comp, or God forbid, just an acapella. I've given people an acapella at the end of a session, and I'm like, do you want the files? And they're like, no, man, you can keep them. I'm like, I just gave you a stereo acapella with compression, EQ, and reverb on it. Are you sure you don't want the stems? And you're just like, okay, whatever.
C'est la vie.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I don't get Pro Tools sessions very often. I do sometimes, and it's 50-50. Sometimes it saves me time. Sometimes it makes my mix prep like 3 hours instead of 40 minutes, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. I've never done well with like receiving like a Logic session and then trying to mix it within whatever they have. It's too confusing for me.
Yeah.
I need to kind of like do my own setup, my own routing, and like my own stereo bus processing or stem processing, bus processing kind of stuff.
But then
it just throws me off.
Then you're always running the risk of like everything falling apart too. It's like,
right.
I'm trying to get like basically whatever everybody already likes. Like I want to start there. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. And I think like younger engineers are like, I don't want any of your plugins, or I don't want to send you my plugins. But like eventually all these people will realize that it is a waste of everyone's time for you to spend a week on something and make it sound what everybody agrees is great, and then send it off to a mixer and blow out everything so that they can start over, because you're going to do 7 or 8 rounds of notes just to get back to the rough mix. And then like most people, I'm just going to be burnt out at that point. If I'm going to mix your song for a week just to get back to the rough mix, it's not going to get much better than that. But if we can start where you left off, then we can make this twice as good. And I feel like everybody should get on board with that and just share your sessions if you need to share your sessions. Print your effects. Now, if you are unconfident and you're like, I think I ruined this, we'll send it wet and dry, and we can see what happens.
I think like, anyways, like we're so in touch with our clients that it's like, send us everything wet how you had it, and if I need something else, I'll just ask you for it, and you can send it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
The level of communication now is so good that, it's so easy to just WhatsApp somebody or message somebody or whatever, in Israel we WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But
I've found that like anybody that I have a conversation with and like talk through the process and be like, hey, this is what I would like and this is why, they're like, oh yeah, that makes absolute sense. As opposed to like, you'll get those gigs every once in a while, people will just hit up your website or be like a Sound Better gig, and it's like a couple messages. It's like one message and they pay you and you're like, we haven't even really talked. And you're just like, okay.
I really don't. I really
this.
don't like that about Sound Better.
No.
Although I saw you got a bunch of reviews on Sound Better.
I gamed the system a little bit on Sound Better during the pandemic.
Nice.
I'm not a huge supporter of the platform.
Yeah,
but
no, I think because it's just tearing down what we all do in this industry, which is build personal connections with people. And then it's like, I can't even really contact this person who I think did a phenomenal job doing slide guitar on this record I'm making. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like all those marketplaces are like the same thing. Like even if you go to like Fiverr or whatever and you're looking for anything, it's all very transactional. Like I feel like everybody understands like if you're getting a job on a marketplace that it's going to be a whole different experience for both parties, as if, you're being introduced and getting a coffee and having a Zoom call or whatever. It's like two different things,
Yeah, that's not not the typical way to do it, but
that's a great segue. I wanted to ramble and get your opinion about like whether everyone undercharges for their services in this industry, because I feel like so many people do.
Well, did you hear my Matt Boudreau's rant on?
Yes,
on
and
my
I
podcast?
agree with that. Did I hear the whole rant or just the clip? No, I enjoyed that episode. Yeah, I fully agree with him. Like there's too many people doing like cheap work in this industry, and I know you talked about this with Matt, but I feel like, okay, I think everybody should do this. If you've like been in the audio industry, you're a mixer, you're an engineer, you're a producer, like whatever, track like for a quarter of the year, like a couple months, right? Just run a timer or however you want to do it, track the hours that you put into projects and compare that to what you're charging, right? So let's say you're a producer charging $500 a beat, and that includes a mix or whatever. And then you see that it's taking you 40 hours to make the beat, tune the vocal, cut the vocal, do the mix, do the master. You just made, what is that? 500 divided by 100 and it's $12.50 an hour, right?
Yeah, $10 an hour.
Yeah, $12.50 an hour. So you just made $12.50 an hour. So you might like, I'm in Los Angeles, so people get paid more, but like you can be a hostess at a restaurant for like $25 an hour in this town. So like,
yeah, he'll be flipping burgers, making more money.
Yeah, why do you want to take like a skill that you've put all that time and effort into perfecting and mastering the art of like mixing music or making beats or whatever like your thing is, and then sell it for like $10 an hour? And I just think a lot of people will realize very quickly when they just do a quick gut check of like, how many hours, what am I getting paid? Is this an hourly rate that I'm comfortable with? And maybe it is. Maybe you're making $30 an hour and you feel good about that. Or maybe you're making $30 an hour and you're like, holy shit, I thought I was actually making a lot of money or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know. It's just my opinion. It was eye-opening for me when I did that years ago. I guess I should just say that.
Yeah. No. I just saw that Chris Graham from Bounce Butler just put out a thing. It's like an AI, like a rate coach or something.
Session
like tell you
tracker,
how long. Yeah. I think it's only with Pro Tools right now. I think, first of all, definitely people don't charge enough money. It's definitely hard to charge enough money with artists.
Yes.
And that's like, and I'm in Israel, so I'm in a completely different market than you. And I'm like very aware of the fact that I'm in a bad market because people in Israel don't have money and artists especially don't have money. And I have to charge them like taxes that if I charge like a business, they're like, okay, cool. Like we have a VAT here. It's like a very regressive tax. It's 17%. So I have to charge people 17% on top of whatever I'm trying to charge them.
You have to do that for services?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
If your revenue is above a certain amount here. And so it's like, okay, so if I'm charging a business to do like a podcast or something, oh, it's plus VAT. They're like, oh yeah, no problem. I told an artist it's like plus VAT. They're like, oh, that's another like lots of money for me. That's like thousands of shekels, in some cases,
Yeah.
So it's like people already don't have money. It's so hard because it's like, working with artists who don't necessarily have the cash that like a business does.
Yeah.
Now in LA, I think it's different because in LA, it's like, this is the heart of the scene, right? The heart of or Nashville or New York or something. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think at the end of the day, you have to charge what you're worth because otherwise you're out of business. And that's kind of like the big takeaway for me is like, if I'm not putting enough money in my pocket, I'm not feeding my family, I have to get another job.
Right.
So, and if I'm not charging enough to keep myself in business, then I'm not doing anybody any favors. So like that granted it really is hard to be an artist and I feel for my artist friends and it's so tough. The other hand, it's like, if I'm not staying in business, forget it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right?
It is. I mean, unfortunately, money is a requirement for survival in the world. But that goes back to the root problem here is that most artists can't make enough money to sustain music as a career. And those people are also feeding a large portion of the audio engineers and producers and mixers that are looking for work. But I feel like, I think that just because the artist maybe is in a part-time situation with their music that currently, that doesn't mean that as a service provider, you need to make yourself part-time. You know what I mean? Right. And I think a lot of people are like, well, this artist is new and they have no money. I'm going to do this mix for $100. And you might do a great mix for $100, but you're hurting yourself because you're only charging $100 and it's going to take you,
5 to 10 hours.
5 to 10 hours, right? Whatever. And then that person's going to tell their friend, holy shit, Jim did an amazing mix for $100. And the longer you're in this business, you find that like the rate that a client or artist is on for
Finds you at
is the rate that their friends will also be on, because I've had it where I've had people I've worked with for like 10 years, and they send me people and they're like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, but not for that. Like I'm like, double that, and they're like, what do you mean? And you're like, you're talking to somebody that I worked with 10 years ago, and we do like one song every couple of years. Like that person is like a legacy client, and you can like increase the rates on legacy clients slowly, but they are where they are, which is kind of the problem. You start giving people deals, you're going to have to give everybody deals. So that's why you have to be comfortable with what you're making in the end. Yeah. But yes, the root problem is that music needs to generate more income for these artists.
That's also true. That's totally true. But it's interesting. That's an interesting also topic to maybe talk about. And that's kind of like not necessarily firing old clients, but like, raising the prices on old clients or finding new clients because the old clients are just never going to give you the rate you need to survive. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm at a stage right now where I'm realizing like I need to do some serious shifts in the music I'm working on for a number of reasons. Yeah. Right. For like, I need to make more money, first of all. And if I'm doing this and I'm 36 and I'm, supporting my family, like I need to be working on some more music that I really am passionate about and love. And so like, I'm at a point, I feel like I'm at a little bit of a, I feel like I'm always saying this on the air, but I'm at a bit of a fork in the road again of like, I need to like kind of figure out exactly the kind of musical path I want to go down and find new clients that are willing to pay me a rate that I can survive off of, and so it's like, how do you kind of like change your clientele over time to be your ideal clientele, right? The ideal artists you work with that can now pay your higher rate and maybe is more in the direction that you want to go. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, like, I wish I had
done any firing.
I mean, I don't, I've never really deliberately quote fired a client. I find that people filter themselves out. And I also find that like those people, you try to raise rates as years go on, but you build a rapport with that person and those projects become easier and easier. So you're almost getting a better rate. If you can, it used to take you 8 hours to do a mix for this person, and now it takes 4 because they send you perfect files and you guys have a rapport and I know what they like and they know what I'm going to do. And so like to a certain extent, as time goes on, you're making more money because you're probably doing those jobs faster. Now, some people might be nightmares with revisions, but I also find that my experience is that people that have been a pain in my ass because they don't know what they want, those people also, they move on because they're searching for a solution to their non-success by working with different people. You know what I mean? It's like you'll do a mix for somebody and like that song stays under 1,000 streams and it's their first song ever. It's not necessarily their fault in their eyes. It's my fault, me and the mastering engineer. So next time they're going to go to a different mixer and a different mastering engineer. And it sounds kind of funny, but I definitely think, because I've had people come to me and they're like, I need somebody to take this to the next level, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, this song, you can pay me twice what you paid the last guy, or you can pay somebody else twice what you're going to pay me. This song is still not going to be massive. Like this song is what it is. I will give you the best version of this, but that's not the problem here. And so I just find that those clients, they kind of move on on their own. So I haven't luckily had to just ignore people or just tell people they're not interested.
But have you told people like, I'm sorry, I can't do it for that rate anymore?
I have. And they're usually like referrals, and I'm just like, I can't. Most of the time they're like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
And I've had people, push back on increases and then, maybe do one or two more songs and then leave or what, or not come back, which is,
right.
Was it worth the 5% increase? But then at that point you're like, do you even value what I do if I ask for a 5% increase after 7 years and I do one mix for you and then you're like, this is too expensive? It might be like $13, might be $25. Like it's, I don't like double people's rates. I'm like, hey, can we bump it up 10? I usually present it like, hey, are you able to do this? It's a 12% increase from last time. And like, I feel like when you lay it out as a percentage, they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Especially inflation's been like out of control. I think everywhere, like inflation but over here.
Yeah.
So
my daughter's daycare provider is like raising the rates a little bit. And my wife's like, oh my God, it's so expensive. And I'm like, you know what? Considering how much inflation, it's not even expensive. It's like less than inflation. Like, she deserves it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like nuts. This stuff, it's inflation is insane right now.
Yeah, it's out of control.
Everything's more expensive. And so it's like, it's actually a good time to raise your rates, I guess, during inflation. Because
totally.
You got to keep up with the inflation.
I mean, I did find, like you were talking about, like how to find a new like core base of clients. I basically a few years ago, significantly increased my rates for new clients, and was just like, okay, I'm just going to try a significantly higher number because I believe that this is market value. I'm just going to see what happens. And it's taken like 3 years, but the majority of the mixes I do now are at that rate, and I still have a lot of legacy people, and they've come up a little bit or whatever it is. I feel like we're just talking about money, and I feel like I don't care about music on this podcast, but it's just the reality. We talked a lot
about music. We're going to get back to music later.
All right.
We've got the Sauce segment coming up.
It's just the reality of working as a freelance individual. Like we all have problems asking for more money, and it's like only to your own detriment, because then you start resenting the work you're doing, right? If you feel like you're being
that's
underpaid.
That's a little sign that you need to like that this is not good.
Yeah, because then you're not even doing good work. You're pissed at somebody. Like, so I find it takes time. Like if you're trying to increase your rates, the only thing I can say is ask for what you want and get ready to hear no, and and keep looking for the type of person that can afford that. And maybe you identify that it's a specific tier of artists, like people with like 50,000 listeners on Spotify will pay you the rate you want. Well, keep an eye out for those people or whatever it is, and stop working with the people that are putting their first record out. I mean, those people are never going to have, that much money unless it's being funded by, an uncle or something.
Exactly.
But I also don't think that those people should pay. Like, if it's your first record, you shouldn't be paying Manny to mix it just because your dad has a lot of money or something like that. Like, you should, understand what's important at that point. Because, okay, this is something, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, because I was thinking about this the other day. I don't really think there's an ROI for an artist on paying for a mix or master.
Right.
Like, if you're talking about like dollar value business choice, why would you pay someone, we'll just say $1,000. Why would you pay somebody $1,000 to then give you a mix that is not going to make you any more money? It's not going to make you stream more. It's not going to make more people listen to it. It's like almost a vanity. It's a luxury service to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Which is
for the first few songs.
Yeah. Like what? No, just in general. Like, when was the last time do you think you've ever mixed a song for somebody that resulted in them making more money from that song?
Probably. I mean, I don't know about now they're doing a different kind of gig. Now they're making more money from performances, or like I do think there is an ROI.
Okay.
I think I disagree with you.
Okay. That's fine. That's great. I mean, I was like,
I think there are artists that are so new and so early on in their career that maybe there isn't an ROI because it's going to take them another 5 songs till something is meaningful. I guess maybe there is no, you know what I'm saying? Like, or especially if like the song is not great or the production's not great. It's like, why am I even mixing this?
Exactly. Yeah.
I've definitely done stuff where it's like, why am I even mixing this? Because this is not great anyways. Like the recording isn't great. The production's not great. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of blah.
Yeah.
But I think with artists that even if it's like an early release or it's like not getting a ton of streams, it could still have a big impact if it sounds good, you know?
I guess, I mean, I agree. I mean, obviously I mix,
You think
for,
there's
mix
value
for a
in
living.
mixing.
I think there's
Right.
value in it. But like if you were to like just ask like a straight up like business person, because I was listening to all these business podcasts. And I think I was listening to an Alex Hormozy, you know, one of his rants or whatever. And I started having this existential crisis of like realizing like I feel like I basically provide a luxury service for people that doesn't actually, you know, like if they spend $1,000, they're not going to necessarily make $7,000 because of that. It's not like a direct like correlatable like
Right.
ROI from a business perspective. But I've been
Right.
in like such this business headspace that I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was like texting my buddy. I was like, what do you think about this? And he was like, I feel like that's totally true, but I think you're crazy. And I'm like, I think I'm crazy too. But it's just, you know, it's just where my head was at that day. And I don't know. I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah. You could go down like a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you could spin out.
I think the ROI is long because it's like a longer tail, like than you're thinking about. Because it's like, sure, this artist is not going to make any money off of this thing. It's going to get 800 streams on Spotify.
Yeah.
And like half of them are like, you know, his uncle and that sponsored it. Same uncle. No,
Same
just kidding.
uncle.
But down the road, you know, you never know because a good sounding song can make the difference. Maybe they'll get a sync of that song down the line, or maybe just it earned them a fan that like down the line will buy a ticket to their concert and will tell their friends about it.
And that's a great way to look at it.
Since day one.
Yeah.
I've been with them since day one. That record slapped even though nobody listened to it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, before you became a, you know, moderately big, you know, pop singer-songwriter or whatever it is.
That makes me feel better actually. You've brought some comfort to me because that is a good way. It's a good way to look at it. Look at it like, you know, it's gaining one fan and it's the compounding growth of that ultimately. Your ROI might be your record deal in 10 years. So
like the people that I've gotten to from one connection is like uncanny. Like I reached out to one person cold. They introduced me to this person introduced me like I've had all kinds of stuff just with this podcast.
Yeah.
Seeing what like one connection can do. So like you never know.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you never know. I mean,
and there's also like the artistic authenticity of it, right? Like there's like let the records, you know, just for the record, let's make this record sound good. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, even if it doesn't matter, this person, the value of that record to that person down the line, when, you know, they had a failed music career and they ended up becoming a lawyer. And when they're 55, they go like, show their kid like, hey, check it out. I made this song when I was like 22 and like, oh, it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Like that has a lot of value also.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
I guess it's like,
in like the worst, you know, in the worser case scenarios, right?
Yeah, I guess it's more the way it should be looked at is you're investing in yourself. You're not necessarily investing in your business, you know, because investing in yourself, like, you know, reading a book or like going to the gym or something. There's no like quote ROI on, you know, getting a little bit smarter or like getting in shape or whatever. So I guess that's the best way to look at it.
The ROI could be the difference between living to 85 or 92. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, who knows? Like, who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, this is absolutely a bizarre statement, and hopefully nobody else on your podcast will bring up the fact that mixing is of no value to the client.
No,
but
I think we both know that mixing has a lot of value.
Oh, no, we do.
And I think
it's just a weird, like thing I had in my head like a week ago, and I was like, oh, shit, what if everybody else figures this out? Is it over?
Is it over?
Is it over?
Well, when AI takes over, it will be over.
Yeah.
And then we'll know.
Yeah, totally.
Or we won't know because everything is fake. And we now turns out we've been in a matrix the entire time. And you know, that's it. That's I'm afraid of that.
And finding out that you're in the matrix?
I don't really think we're in the matrix, but yeah, like I don't know. I'm so confused by technology right now. I feel like we're at a point where the technology is hurting us so much more than it's helping us. I feel like there was a time when it was helping us. And I feel like it peaked in around 2012, 2011 or something. Like right before like iPhones became everywhere.
Yeah.
I think like I had a MacBook and I could connect to the internet and go on Wikipedia and learn shit and watch like, In Rainbows from the Basement and like just totally get immersed in shit. And then I could leave and then be in the world and just kind of walk around and like, experience life. And now it's just like we're all living in virtual reality all the time. We don't have attention spans anymore. And I'm just kind of like bitter and pissed off about it. And
it is really crazy to think about, like, because you and I grew up before, the way the world is now. Like,
yeah.
We used to stand in line and like wait to order food and do nothing but stand there. And now it's like, it doesn't matter how old you are or like how young you are. Like if you get in line, there's 10 people in front of you, boom, phone's coming out, going into the phone. Like we used to just sit there and like, think, I guess. I mean, there was nothing else to do. Maybe you talk to the person in front of you if the line's long enough, but those days are gone. It's very weird.
Yeah.
At least
I'm assuming he still does this, but Seth, I'm sure Seth Godin.
Yeah.
But he talks about like scheduling in time to his day to get bored so that his brain goes to those bored places, which are like really important, kind of thinking outside the box and problem solving. And like people don't get bored anymore, I think, or they're so averse to it.
Yeah.
Getting bored, like it's like
a bad
just
thing.
Take out my phone now. The news is there. Instagram is there. Like anything is there to kind of take my mind off of this existential angst.
Yeah.
Like it's not good.
Yeah.
I think it's fucking with our brains.
I find it when, like I go on my run, I'm always listening to podcasts. A lot of times I'll just completely like zone out. Something about like hearing people talk in my head makes me like think about whatever podcast ideas or like what I want to do to my mix template. It's like that. My mind wanders while I'm listening to two people ramble. Kind of maybe somebody's mind is wandering while we ramble, but it's weird.
That's great.
It's weird.
I don't usually do that when I'm listening to podcasts, but I do have spaces for that.
Yeah. I find it's when I'm running. Like if I'm at the gym, I'm listening to the podcast. If I'm like cleaning the dishes, I'm listening to the podcast. If I'm running, something about that act of just like focusing forward, I just check out and I'll find myself like putting voice notes into my phone and stuff like that and like trying to collect ideas. But
that's awesome. Totally unrelated. I started playing basketball.
Nice. A
few weeks ago. And it's since my daughter's been born, I've just been tired all the time. The regimen has gone out the window. But like moving is so good. Like moving your body and just like doing some cardio. It's a game changer.
It is like, man, you want to talk about like stress relief. I got to get on the podium for a second on this one. So I used to work like 6 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day. I didn't get up from the computer. I would sit there. I ended up at like a doctor with like he described it as carpal tunnel, but of the elbow. Cause I was basically just sitting with my arms bent for like 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then what I do, like I was younger, I went home and like played video games. So I woke up in the morning, I'm like playing Xbox, my arms are bent. I go to Pro Tools all day, arms are bent, go back home, play Xbox, arms are bent. And he was like, the doctor was like, well, we can give you these steroids. And then if they don't work, then we'll do surgery or remove this nerve. And I'm like, okay, hard pass on the surgery. Okay. I'm not moving any nerves. But man, I had like chronic aches and pains for like years. And then, when I was getting married, my wife was like, you got to work out. When you're getting married, you're like, I got to look good for the wedding. And you just start working out and all of that shit goes away. Like your back doesn't hurt anymore. My knee doesn't hurt anymore. Like I can work for 12 hours and I don't feel like I'm like dying afterwards. I just like something about this industry. It's like a badge of honor to like sit in front of the computer as long as possible. And from somebody that had a doctor tell them they should have surgery, I'm telling you, just get up and fucking walk around, go for a jog, and it reduces your stress and it makes you not fall apart while you're running Pro Tools. So I'm done, but I just really encourage engineers in particular because they are the most susceptible to this problem. Just like take more breaks, just do it for yourself. It is worth it.
Yeah.
You will
There's
feel
like a
so
feeling
much
of
better.
like you need to like hustle and push through it and grind through it. That's the word.
Yeah. It's like the engineer
just
always...
one more take.
Exactly. Yeah. And the engineer's always like, I'll tune this while you guys go to lunch. and you're just like, why didn't you also walk down the street and go to lunch? Why did you opt to sit there and tune the vocal? Like just take a break for an hour. It's just, anyway, there's a time and a place for it. Like everybody's like putting their hours in when they start out and you just want to like impress everybody. But
There's
just
the beginning.
There's a fine line to where you start doing like physical harm to yourself. And like, as soon as you feel like, like I used to brag to my friends, like, oh, I got Pro Tools elbow. And we were all like, that's funny. That's hilarious. And like, no, I had a problem with my elbow, but we sat around drinking beers, joking about it, so.
Right.
Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Take care of your bodies. I wanted to ask you in terms of like, back to like mixing and stuff. Did anybody say anything on your podcast recently in the last year or so that kind of changed the way you mix or thought about mixing or anything music related?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I've definitely stolen some tricks from a few people that have mentioned them. I mean, like my podcast has a mix of engineers and producers and mixers, and I've had some like, marketing people on recently. I think that there's a common thread, which goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning, where, I mentioned working faster and like identifying like the most important part of like a mix, because you don't have time because you have a baby. I think there's a common thread where people that I think are very talented and are successful, they've mentioned something similar. Like the key is what is important here. Like, what are we all listening to? It's not so much like mixed tricks. And I think hearing multiple people that I respect kind of say the same thing in different words, I think reinforces that fact to me that yes, it doesn't have to take 7 days and you don't have to like EQ every whistle tone out of everything. Like it has to feel good as a piece of music. It has to reflect the vision of everybody and be art. And sometimes art is not sonically pristine. So
right. Is that Ebony Smith quote, right?
Oh yeah. What was that?
Or
quote?
pristine. It was pristine, not perfect.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. We're going for pristine, not perfect. So I think, I think that mindset is just super important. And I think when you're an engineer or a mixer and you're like learning a new skill or you're playing with a new plugin, like I'm guilty of it right now. Like I'm demoing Gold Clip. I don't know if you've checked out Gold Clip. I have it
just
on,
saw
like,
something about it.
But I have it on everything in the mixes I did last week. And it sounds fucking great. But it's like, that's what you do. Like when you get a new plugin or you're demoing something, you're like, I'm going to put it on literally everything and see what it does. And, that stuff isn't necessary. Mixing the song for what the song's for or what the song wants to be is the point. And then all the little side quests that we all go on are important to our journey of like learning new skills, but they're not necessary to making, the mix, the perfect mix or whatnot. So, everybody on the podcast kind of mentions something along those lines. And I think it's a good one to remind people of. So, I think it was on your show, I think last week, somebody was talking about their mix process and how they never experiment with a new plugin until like they feel like they're done with the mix and then they might try something. Was that Dave?
I might have been him.
I think it was
him.
And I was
he's
like,
a mastering engineer, but he has like one mixing project that he works on.
Yeah. And it's like, get to the vision as fast as possible and then go on your side quest. And that really resonated with me. I was like, I have definitely lost momentum because you can lose your creative thing. It's because I was doing it like last week with Gold Clip. Like I was like, what's this knob do? I'm like, I think I know what it does. And then I pull the manual out and then just like 10 minutes later, you've left your creative workflow. So I think it's just important to kind of maintain that creative workflow. And that's to answer your question, the parallel with a lot of mixers that I've talked to.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, actually based on that interview, because we were talking about like how mastering engineers just work so fast. And there's just like, you can kind of figure out how far you can push a mix and you take it there as quickly as possible and then you're kind of done. And I was kind of like curious if like we'd be better off mixing like that also. And I think the answer is we would. What do you think?
I agree. I think we would too. I've definitely done that. Like I've definitely had some projects where, maybe the song or the production isn't quite right, but it's not like my place to tell them that I think they should redo something just because of the type of job it is. And the only thing you can do is like make it the best version of what it is. And unfortunately, it's not always going to be what you would want it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and like we've mentioned before, like a great song always is a great mix. I mean,
Right.
there's a song I mixed recently. The song is amazing. The files were perfect. Like it was just, just a really great pop song. And the mix was just fun. And it was, I didn't want to like lose perspective. I worked on it like 30 minutes to an hour for like 3 or 4 days in a row. And then I sent it to them and they loved it. And we made a couple notes, but it's like, it didn't need me to like fuck with it, like,
Yeah.
it already sounded great. I brought out what I liked. And unfortunately, you also have the other thing where it's like, I've been working on this for like 4 days for 8 hours a day, and it sounds as good as it did at the end of the first day. Maybe this is maxed out.
Right.
So I think there's something to that.
Usually that's a sign that it's not you, right?
Yeah. Or you start like,
Yeah.
you can't fix something that was broken like way early in the process. It's like, just because, you can't take something and be like, okay, this song sucks, so I'm going to give it a crazy awesome, I'm going to find the coolest distorted vocal I've ever heard just to like give it something. You can't do that. Like they how do you even know they want a distorted vocal? And that, like, what kind of ego do you have that you think like you're going to fix this bad song with your distortion on the vocal? Like, that's not possible. Like, you're not that awesome. Nobody's that awesome. Like a bad song is still going to be a bad song. So yeah.
Yeah. So just take it as far as you can quickly.
Yeah. I think that's valid.
Do you usually work like that? Like an hour a day and then an hour the next day? Like, you work in such short increments?
That is we talked about my post-baby workflow. So that's a new thing. Like, I used to tell people, hey, I'm doing your mix on like Monday the 23rd or whatever.
Right.
And then I would find that like, you fall behind on one song and then you're sending a lot of emails that are like, hey, not going to finish today. I'm going to listen to it in the morning and send it. And I also find that I get more done with these baby naps. Like, I realized I can get a lot of stuff done in an hour and feel really good about it. And so because I get up super early, so I get up at 5 a.m. If I have a song I need to do, I'll just start working, right? So I'll work like 5 to 6. My daughter will get up. I'll get back to the studio on her first nap. This is assuming it's not like my work day. This is my dad day, right? I've got 45 minutes to an hour on a nap. I jump back out to the studio, another hour on that song. Then I'm separated by 3 hours doing something else, playing with my daughter. She goes down for another nap. I got another hour in the studio, another hour. So that's 3 hours in on that.
You have a good napping kid.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky. We're lucky. And I realized that I always have perspective because I'm not lost in it, for like 8 hours. So basically my new thing is I don't tell people that I'm mixing their song on a specific day. I say, I'm doing your song this week. I'll send it to you at the end of the week, and I'll usually do 2, 3, 4 songs, and I'll bounce between them for the whole week and just make sure, like, hey, at the end of Friday or Saturday morning or whatever, I'm going to be able to print all 3 or 4 of these songs. And I think that works a lot better for me. I feel like I'm getting a significantly better first mix and getting way less notes. Because I used to find, I think I brought this up maybe on your show last time, like I felt like the mix was done for me after the first round of revisions from the client. So that's when I started I would do a mix 0, and then the next day I would wake up and I would listen to it with fresh ears and do a mix 1. And that's how I kind of solved that first round of notes, because I found like that first round of notes, I agreed with
Anyways,
them.
you would give it to yourself.
And yeah, and there was also things that I was like catching, and then I was like, well, I'm going to kind of drastically change the bass and they've already heard it or something like that. But this new, like, working on a couple songs for 1 to 3 hours and switching and going through the whole week, that is like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm getting mix 1 and mix 2 approved on a regular basis.
Sick.
And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because you're always fresh and you're you hear things differently.
You can self-correct. Yeah. You have more objectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to get down to 1 hour. I often do like 2 hours on a mix on a day, and then I'll come back to it like the next day. I've never done like 1 hour.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a cool goal.
Well, it has to be ready. It's like, it has to be mix prepped so I can just open it and start. If I have to do mix prep, then I lost that hour. It doesn't work. But and mix prep, if you're doing mix prep right before you mix a song too, then you're kind of killing your perspective as well. So I like to, if, timelines work out best, I like to mix prep and basically match the rough mix before I start. And then, when I get up at 5, if I want to dig in, I open a song and it's just creative. It's not like I don't have to do these fades. I don't have to pull this setting in. It's just like, what do I feel like doing? Boom, 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 boom.
Well, I love that. I think that's a perfect segue to get into the sauce segment. We could talk about an example. I don't know if it was the example you already mentioned, but might have been for of the things you're mixing these days. So you sent me a track called Matador by Best Friend. So we can listen to that for about 90 seconds and we'll chat about it. That sound cool?
Cool.
John and full side, there's a bone between your teeth, and a flyer for the therapist beneath your middle seat. Pull the blade from out my shoulders, you're the dancing matador. I just don't know who to write these love songs about anymore.
Yeah, Travis, this is really cool.
Thanks.
I have to say the coolest thing to my ears is how loud you push some of those synths. Because it was like crazy loud. Like you were really playing with the dynamics there in a very real way. And that really, it was surprising and cool.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that I really liked was the low end, the bass and the kick were super interesting sounding and packed punch. So yeah, super dope, dude.
Thanks, dude. Thanks.
You even had like a super, what's it called? Not super bass. What's the name of that EDM genre? I'm not house, not super bass, something bass.
I don't know.
Moment.
Oh,
like that whole, but it was only for like a little bit.
Yeah, that song. I love that band. I met them on the internet during the pandemic and did an EP with them, and then that's from their second EP, which has been out for I don't know, a couple months. And I love working with them because they really paint the picture of what they want well. Like the intentions are there, and I think what they do is really cool and creative. But then they're also okay with me kind of taking it a little bit further. Like, sometimes I'm afraid to take chances, and with them, as long as the intention, my intention is the same as their intention, then they're cool with it. And we've just had a really great rapport. The band is Best Friend. I don't know if you said that, but everybody,
I think I did, yeah.
Everybody should go check out Best Friend. Their EP Places I've Left is where this one is from. And anyway, very cool band. But that mix was a lot of fun. It was a co-production with the guy from Valley. I don't know if you know that band. I love that band, and they know each other, and so I guess he added. They worked together on that for a long time, just going back and forth. And so I just love the journey of that song, and the dynamics are, were built into the production. I just kind of took them to the next place, which, I feel like mastering a song like that is really difficult.
Yeah,
because you can't
probably.
you need that moment where it like explodes to still explode, but you
Right.
can't have the front of that song be really quiet.
No,
But
who mastered it?
I honestly don't know. I don't remember.
know.
I don't remember. Not like
Fair
I'm
enough.
not trying to like not give the person credit. I don't remember.
Okay, great.
It was the person that had done like all their stuff thus far, and and it ended up great. So props to them. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry that I forgot who
Epic.
it was, but yeah, that was one of those songs where I did stuff that I shouldn't have done, and then realized that I'd gone too far. Like in the beginning of the song, I know you started midway so that we could kind of get the journey of it. Otherwise, you would have just had this kind of acoustic thing. Like the beginning of the song is like noise on the guitars that I like initially took out, and I had them panned really wide because that makes sense because there's two acoustic guitars. I'm like, well, where do they go? They go on the left and they go on the right because that's where you put acoustic guitars when you've got two of them, right? And usually right. And so then I'm like flipping back and forth between the rough mix, and I'm like, I have this like thing that feels like really pretty, and it kind of sucks. And I took the RX off and like put the noise and the finger noises back in, and I was like, it's still a little pretty. And then I started panning them, and the guitars are barely panned. They're like in the middle, like not where I would instinctively want to put them, but there was just this magic to the rough mix. And I talk about like respecting the rough mix so much, and I totally did not respect it on this track in the beginning. And luckily, because I was, spacing things out, realized this before I sent it to him, and didn't send him something that I broke. And I love Stacey's voice, and like just trying to keep it like really kind of intimate but not like too bright. It's like a battle. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about on this track, which is the weirdest shit I've ever done, so much so that I was sending this mix to people like, hey, how does this mix sound to you? Does this sound fucked up, or does this sound good? I'm not going to tell you what I did, but just let me know if you hear something fucked up in here. And I didn't tell the band that I was sending it to a couple engineer friends of mine. Sorry, I leaked your track around a little bit. But I had a parallel mix bus because I basically wanted it to pump more at the end, like when it gets crazy, right? And so I have this parallel mix bus that's sidechained to that kick. And I think I even moved it forward. So I moved the trigger early to make sure that the mix was like fully compressed on those kicks so that it could like swell and explode out.
And I thought I heard some pumping.
Like it's like if you heard this,
that's the genre, future bass.
Future bass.
That's why I thought it sounded like future bass. Okay.
So if you could hear this parallel bus, you'd be like, I mean, it's just absolutely smashed down. And then finding the release that felt like it was right, and then blending that in because it had to be a blend, but I wanted it to pump, and I didn't want somebody to be like, hey, is this pumping? But I wanted it to be like extra energetic. And then for some reason,
very cool.
For some reason, I put a micro shift on it, a Sound Toys micro shift, and a couple EQs. So it's like this hyper. The idea started that it would come in at the end. And then when I added this micro shift on it and I heard it in the beginning, I was like, this is really wrong, but this is kind of cool. And then I didn't really like the EQ of it. So then I did some like really drastic EQ to it, and then just kept messing with it until I was okay with there being a parallel mix bus that involved massive amounts of compression, sidechain compression later.
Chorusing effect, basically.
Micro shift with a chorus on it. And, I sent it to a bunch of people. Nobody said, hey, this sounds phasey or anything. And
phasey is not description I would have given.
And, I sent it to the artist. I was like, hey, there's two versions of this. It's going to be a subtle thing, but let me know which one you like. I'm not going to tell you what I did. And I just sent them an A/B, and they picked the one with the micro shift. And they were like, we love that there's like this. There's just something about this. And that's everybody I played it for. Like somebody would come over to the studio and I'm like, hey, will you listen to this? Is this fucked up? And nobody said it was. So I just kept rolling with it. And I've tried it on other songs since, and it has never worked. But on that song, I think just because it's like so intimate and like just the way that the micro shift, because I made it like really bright too. I should have looked at the settings before, we got on here.
That's all right.
The way it interacts with like the verse, like it brings this like low finest haze. It doesn't really make it wider. It's like, it just kind of makes it swim a little bit. I don't know. Maybe somebody's listening to it and they're like, God damn, that sounded phasey. But everybody loved it. And I was like scared shitless that, it was going to be a mistake and whatever. But that's why I sent you that one, because it's definitely the weirdest thing I've ever done. And
it's definitely a cool way to thicken things up. Like I use a lot of that. Like I'll use like even like the Waves ADT or something, or maybe the micro shift to kind of like widen up a lead vocal if it's missing that extra depth or something.
Yeah,
it's a little
thin. Yeah. But
so there's definitely a cool. That's definitely like a thing.
Yeah, but it's never worked again.
That's neat. The whole mix.
Start to
daring
finish.
move. Start to finish. Wow.
Start to
finish.
And
I guess you automated the pumping.
Yeah, I keyed it, so I just copied the bass track to like another audio track that was solely a key, which also allowed me to move the trigger early or late, which is a cool trick. If anybody out there's like trying to get like you're gating your kick, right? Like, because you want to like get all the crap out of it, but you're always like feel like you're losing the attack. You could do a separate trigger and move it like a couple milliseconds early, so it triggers the gate to be 100% open before that transient. Then it can close down, because otherwise it's waiting for the transient to come and it's opening, and at times can like clip that off, right?
That is genius.
I think I stole that from
or you get
somebody. I didn't make that up.
Or you could get like a look ahead. I think the slate gate has like a look ahead or something.
Yeah, the look ahead will work too.
That's really smart.
Yeah, but anyway, I love that band.
There's always like lots of like engineering ways to skin the cat, but
yes, yeah.
But that is cool. I've never thought about that actually. That's the gating thing. Yeah, the look ahead. Very neat, man. Well, it sounds great. I'm curious about like what happened with the bass, because it's like a funky bass tone. It's like not like a typical kind of definitely not. It was way less sustained than I would have imagined for that kind of a future bass sort of drop. You know what I mean? It's like very like staccato-y.
Yeah, the bass I did very little to. Like it's like the bass is really wide, which is another thing that instinctively like I would want to center it. But when it came in, like it feels so good when it comes in, and just the way the production was put together by Kaylin and Rob and Stacy, that I was like, I don't want to like mono this out. And then also the kick, like, it's one of those things where like you solo that kick. I mean, it sounds really cool. Like I think everything in that track sounds really cool. And like you solo that kick, and like there's a million things that I would want to EQ in it. You're just like, I want to fix this, I want to fix that, and then you start fixing that shit. And it's not special anymore. And there's something special about the kick also being a little wide. And there's some micro shift on it now too, right? So I made it a little bit wider and a little bit more flammy, which should technically be bad, on paper, but it panned out. So yeah, that was just one of those things where that song, it was just, don't break it, and like I said, I initially broke it and I realized that I'd made a mistake, and then it took it back.
Yeah, I think the intuition for many mixers is to fix the things that are broken, and I think the Jedi skill, so to speak, to borrow from Dave McNair, is to know when to leave it be.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been ranting about this a lot recently on the air but like you could really make a recording sterile if you go too deep on it. And I think I'm at a point in my career where I'm realizing that I've gone too far in the sterile direction, and I need to like go into the other direction, making things sound cool and like dirty and just kind of be interesting. Because I'd rather have an interesting tone that maybe doesn't, isn't as perfect, but it's more captivating, and
captivating is the word. You have to suck people in. You bring the listener in. I think there was a record that we did at Capitol when I was a runner. It was like 15, 16, I don't remember when this was, 2006, maybe 7, and it was a Shelby Lynn record. She was covering Dusty Springfield songs. Thormone producing and Al Schmidt engineering. And maybe they were going to tape.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But so I was just a runner, getting coffee and getting to watch. But, there's that record ended up winning Best Engineered that year at the Grammys. And on the final mix, like there's a moment where the vocals distorted for a second. It was too hot. But like everybody was like, this is the performance. This is beautiful. There's another one where she used to take her dog into the booth and dog barked, made some noise, whatever. It's still in there and it still got Best Engineered. So, it's really about like making something that pulls the listener in, and that generally does not include perfection.
Yes.
So
again, back to the Ebony Smith quote.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've gone down this. I don't want to rant too long on it, but it's something that like I've just like realized like I went too far with, and because I could hear the issues, right?
Yeah.
It's like just because you can hear it doesn't mean you need to do anything about it.
Yeah. Because you have to remember like what you're hearing when you solo the kick drum is not what you're hearing when you.
Right. So that's go back to the full perspective of what people are listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think, so that gotta sometimes have that mastering outlook on the mix even.
Yeah. Yeah.
That full picture thing.
Totally.
We get too deep in the weeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, this is epic. Well, dude, that song sounds great. You're doing great work. And,
Thanks.
yeah, I mean, we could rant on a lot of things, but I think I'll try to bring it towards a close so it's not too long of an episode. But I don't even think I need to ask you about like habits and routines that kind of keep you fresh.
Yeah,
because you kind of talked about running and stuff and things like that. So unless there's anything else you want to add to that,
no. The only thing
I
I would say is I try to keep the Stephen Pressfield. I always say it wrong. War of art approach. Like you just have to sit down and start working on something. Like and 10 minutes after you do that, you're gonna be into it. It's just like sometimes the hurdle is walking in here and turning the computer on, and 15 minutes after you start, you're gonna be crushing it. I just think sometimes that's the only way to get through a creative rut is just to power through. And that might be like that you write shit songs for a week, but you still wrote 5 days in a row. And then the next week you come back and you're like, I feel great now. I'm back. So that's my thoughts.
Does that apply also to making YouTube videos?
Yeah, I think so. I guess. Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just get started. Yeah.
Get started.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the truth. It is the truth.
Yep, totally.
Quit stalling. Don't be a perfectionist. Amazing. So all that's left is the final question of the show, which I asked you last time, and I ask everybody who's been on the show. Looking back on your journey, and again, the answer may have changed or may not have changed. But looking back on your journey, was there something that you did or didn't do that you'd want to impart on your earlier self, or a guest who's listening to the podcast is maybe more early on in their journey of be like, keep at that, I'll get you where you want to go, or quit it, it's holding you back? Would be that one thing.
Yeah, I think this is related to what I said last time. If I remember what I said last time, it's that like being the best isn't enough, and that you have to learn how to, be an advocate for yourself and like put yourself in a situation.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would say. And I think this is related to that, and this is something that I've come to terms with more of late as I like look around at the state of the industry and like who's doing what, who's doing well, and what they're doing to do that. And I think that my advice to myself would be don't think that marketing yourself or learning to sell yourself is a negative thing. And this is very much in parallel, like I said, to what I said before. If nobody knows who you are, it doesn't matter how good you are. So if you spend all of your time becoming the greatest producer of all time, and you don't find a way to sell yourself to people to let them work with you or convince them to work with you, or, convince someone that you should mix their song, then it doesn't matter how good you are. So I think that something that I think about a lot now that I have now that I have a daughter and you have 2 kids, maybe think about this is like, I almost, this is an exaggeration, but I almost feel like the only thing that matters in the world is being able to market and sell your ideas and services. And then if you understand those things, then you can do whatever you want. It's like, oh, you want to be a computer designer. Well, you already love being a computer, like building computer programs. Why don't you learn how to sell that program so that when you build it, you can sell it? You love mixing records. You're going to spend all your time mixing records, so you're going to be great at it. Why pay education? Why pay for education to learn how to mix records better when you could pay for education to learn how to like run your business or something like that? So I think, like I said, that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Right.
But I think in today's connected, content-filled bullshit world, you have to find a way to keep yourself front and center. And being the best mixer in the world is not the way to do that. You have to find the other way to do it. And that involves being comfortable selling yourself, finding some form of marketing that feels authentic to you. And, maybe that's just networking and going to events. Maybe that's it. But I would consider that a form of marketing and selling yourself. I'm not saying take out Facebook ads. That's not, don't take it literal. Take it, a little bit from the abstract, because if nobody knows who you are, then it doesn't matter if you're any good.
Yeah, it's true. I like the emphasis on the authentic for you kind of way, because I feel like it's hard to sell unless you have it done. You're doing it in a way that you can sell it.
Yeah,
because you can't if it's not authentic, you're not going to be able to sell it.
Yes, yeah.
So you have to find that kind of way that works for you.
Yeah,
and it's not easy because it requires of us more than what we initially signed up for, right? Like
it's another skill set.
It's another skill set, and there are so many skill sets. And man, for artists, it's even worse. And I, they have to do so much that they shouldn't have any business trying to do. But
yeah,
this is the world that we're in right now. So
yeah,
we kind of have to like look reality in the face and suck it up.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently that's going to be on my show coming up. Or maybe it's out when this comes out, I don't know, with Carl Bonner, who was a mutual friend of ours.
Oh,
he's got his branding course, and we were having a conversation, and something that I took away from that conversation with him is that you are always building that image of yourself. It's like, so if you're unaware of what you're doing in the world to build that image, you're only hurting yourself. And I'm not talking about social media, like it's how you interact with people in the studio and everything, but everything that you're doing is painting the picture of like who you are. And a quote that Carl had that I'll probably not remember exactly, but I think it really summed up marketing for me. It was like something along the lines of a brand is not what you want people to see about you. It's what people see about you. I butchered it.
Right.
Somebody check with Carl because he has.
That sounds about right.
It's close. Yeah.
He leaked something to me from his like course, which is coming out.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
exactly. And that like kind of hit home for me because I was like, yeah, that's right. Everything you're doing is painting a picture, and you might think it's painting one picture. Like I might think that I'm painting the picture that I love mixing indie pop because I gave you that best friend track, right? But like on the outside, somebody can look at my credits and be like, oh, this guy mixes everything. He's not a specialist. And you just have to remember that everything you're doing is painting that picture. So what I think I'm selling you is not necessarily what you're buying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like eliminating clients potentially or trying to narrow in on the right clients. Because if you're working with clients that are gonna not really what you want to be doing long term, then you're gonna just keep getting painted in that picture.
Yeah.
And whether that's what you want to do or not, or even if those are the songs, not the songs that you're highlighting on your website, that's still the people that are seeing. People are seeing that by their friends and the referrals. It's like that's your brand also.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think it's really easy to choose niching down, like as an example of that. But like you could also talk about how you name your files, how you deliver things, how you email clients, like. Okay, this person's super organized, this person's super unorganized, and they always email me and tell me they're not getting the mix done. It's like everything you're doing is painting the picture that somebody else believes about you. So keep that in mind as you go, and just try to reflect on like what picture am I painting here. So I guess that would be my advice to myself and to others.
It's like. But by being really good at responding to text messages, am I showing people that I'm a really good communicator, or am I just showing people that I'm way too available and giving of my time?
Also true.
I don't know.
Also
Who
true.
knows?
Yeah.
Maybe my clients can tell me.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think there's something to just accepting early in your life that you're going to have the skill of marketing and branding in some form or another because you're doing it. So you might as well actively try to do it the way you want. And I guess
Right.
that would be my advice.
Yeah.
So.
All right. That's good advice. Thank you. Well, Travis, it's always a blast to hang with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come back on Secret Sonics. I know we kind of drifted into different areas,
I thought it was
music
fun.
included.
Yeah.
But I think we got to talk a little bit about what's on both of our minds. And as always, second interviews on the podcast are more casual and kind of get into more of the other things that are kind of surrounding our lives. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, Travis, this was really fun. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Always a good hang.
Always a good hang. Awesome, dude. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you've been digging the show, it would be awesome if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, and or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. That's it for now. Have a great week. Take care and dig in. See you soon. Bye-bye.